You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu Jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a black belt who trains at Semper Fortis Jiu Jitsu, located in San Antonio, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristopher Gadsden.
What's going on, guys?
What's going on, sir? How are you?
Oh man, you know me, blessed and highly favored, brother. Just
yes, sir.
You know.
Gotcha. Well, first and foremost, man, I do appreciate you taking out the time to come on the show and bless us with your jiu-jitsu knowledge.
Oh, thanks. For sure.
Well,
thanks for having me.
Without further ado, man, let's get the ball rolling. If you want to, formally introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear about your jiu-jitsu journey.
All right, so my name's Chris. I actually go by the name Kekoa. I'm a black belt underneath Luis Pajares. I train under Saad Al-Aziz at Semper Fortis Jiu Jitsu in San Antonio. I am a We2Five Foundation ambassador. I am a veteran advocate, single dad, and between jiu-jitsu and my son, this is pretty much just my life, man. This is all I do.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, right?
I hear that.
All right, so how'd you get started? How'd you find jiu-jitsu? Or how did it find you, rather?
It beat the snot out of me the first time I felt it.
Of course.
So I actually got started with the Army's combatives program.
Okay.
And it's at the lower levels, it's very grappling based. And when I started with that, I want to say 2006. 26-year-old, military guy who knows a little bit of grappling, a little bit of striking, and is physically fit. You think you got a shot at going into the UFC. So I really thought that I really thought that all I needed was just my Army combatives, and some CrossFit, and I would make it. So I didn't train anything else for about 3 years. And then it was during my third tour to Iraq. Yeah, so it was my third tour in Iraq. I was at the gym on post, and they had some mats down, and I was training with some of my soldiers. And this young kid walks up, and he's, I was 5'8", 185 pounds. And this kid was like 140 pounds. And I'm rolling with my soldiers, and he's like, "Hey, can I get a roll in?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he smoked me. He smoked me bad. I had to step off the mat to throw up.
Oh wow.
And that's like how bad it was. Like I just couldn't do anything with him. And afterwards I was talking with him. He's like, "Yeah, no, I don't train combatives." He's like, "I train jiu-jitsu." And I forget what school he said he's from, but at that time I was like, "Man, like, what's this jiu-jitsu stuff?" And I knew what it was, but really never been exposed to it. So fast forward maybe a month later, I was at the Post Exchange there in Iraq, and I saw this magazine. It's a martial arts magazine, and I've been in martial arts since I was a kid. I grew up doing Silum Futka Kuen, which is a type of kung fu. So I did that underneath my dad for years. And I saw the Black Belt magazine, and I picked it up, and I was like, cool, something to read while on my downtime. And I saw this advertisement for the Gracie Combatives program. So I was like, oh, I can learn Gracie Jiu-Jitsu while I'm here, and maybe in a couple years I'll get to the UFC. Anyways, so bought the DVD set, practiced on my soldiers, beat the snot out of them for a while. Went back, left Iraq, went back home to Alaska, and there was no schools there for me to really train at. I really didn't have any good options. So that was about end of 2009. So I really didn't start again until 2011 when I got stationed in Washington, D.C. And I was super lucky to be, in the D.C. area. D.C.'s got so many great schools within an hour drive. And I lived in Sterling, Virginia, which is probably about 45 minutes outside of town. And it just so happens that I was, 2.3 miles away from Pedro Sauer's headquarters there in Sterling, Virginia. So that's really where I got started. I spent, 3 years there, training underneath him. And then there's a thing that happens in the military where every 3 years we get picked up and moved somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my first 3 years there, and then I left active duty, went, moved to Texas to join the National Guard there, and I started training underneath just different schools, not really staying consistent, just kind of, checking in and out here or there. And I actually ended up getting my purple belt underneath Alessandre. I forget his last name now, but he'll beat me up for later for it. But it's a Gracie Baja school. So I got my purple belt there. And that was in 2018. Nope, 2017. Around August 2017, I actually rejoined active duty service and moved to San Antonio, which is like an hour away. And I really couldn't train consistently just because of my work schedule as a recruiter. So what ended up happening was I just kind of, flitted here or there. Sorry, I'm trying to get my glass glare off there, but not going to work apparently. So I ended up finding another Pedro Sauer affiliate here in San Antonio. So I, trained underneath them for about, 2 years when I got my brown belt. Around 2020, we had COVID.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was rough. And the school that I was at actually, they actually ended up closing their doors because they just couldn't keep the business going. So I was like, dang, like who am I going to train under now? Like I got to go find a whole other school. And a barbecue restaurant chain out here called Bill Miller's. And my son was like, one day, he's like, Dad, I want breakfast tacos from Philly's Breakfast. So I said, yeah, sure, not a problem, boy. So we go to Bill Miller's, and while we're sitting in line, he goes, Dad, look, Jiu Jitsu. I said, wow, there's a school that's like 5 minutes from my house. I never knew this. So,
Chris, I lost you. Hello.
I ended up calling that day. Hello.
Yeah, it kind of froze up a little bit.
Oh.
All right, there we go.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I live in a depression, so sometimes the signal goes a little wonky. My apologies.
It's okay.
But yeah, so I called. Yeah. So I called Semper Fortis that day. I talked with Sway, and she's like, "Yeah, just come on in." So I, dusted off my gi and stretched out my rash guard a little bit, and showed up. New brown belt in the gym, and really got the screws put to me by some of the competitors there, which was good. And I've just been there since I want to say actually my 40th birthday. So 2 years, going on 3 years now. I've been there almost 3 years. So
okay. Finally, it's good to see that you finally found a home.
Oh yeah. It's my second family.
Oh yeah, definitely. That same thing with my gym, man. We are a huge family. I speak and talk to these guys every single day, so I definitely understand that. So, combative training. I guess if you can break that down, what was the difference between you learning combative training until you switched over to jiu-jitsu?
So the Army's combatives training, when I joined the Army back in 1998, it was completely different, absolutely ridiculous. But how it is now it is loosely built off of, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, Krav Maga. It's kind of like a mixed martial art, which is good because you learn a little bit of everything. But the problem is that with the program is you don't specialize in anything. You don't get really good at anything. There's 4 levels. I think there's 3 levels now. But when I started, there was 4 levels. Level 1 was almost consistently all grappling. Level 2 was striking. Level 3, they started introducing more weapons. And then level 4 was like the tactical aspect of it. And it's really good because, the level 1, for you to become level 1 certified, it's a 40-hour course. It's 1 week, right? That's enough for you to learn how to get your tail whipped in the bar. 1 week of training, right? But it's up to the individual Army unit to implement training to make sure that their soldiers are proficient in that training. And some units are really great about it, and some units are like, we're a hospital. We're never going to be using our combatives. So they don't implement that training. But, like any other thing, anything else, the more you train it, the better you get. And the big difference between combatives and jiu-jitsu is really the end goal. In jiu-jitsu, I will play with you on the ground indefinitely. Like, I will just roll on the ground. Like, I don't care. Spinny, flippy, upside down, rolly. If we stand up, I'm going to throw you, right? The whole goal of the Army's combatives program is to get back to your primary, secondary, or your tertiary weapon. And if you can't do either one of those, it's to protect yourself long enough for your battle buddy to come in and soccer kick them in the head. Enzo Gracie style, baby.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's awesome. So I guess for you, it wasn't that big of a transition from actively studying jiu-jitsu on top of what you already knew.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I started off, I was born into martial arts. My dad was an instructor for many years. So, that was already built in there. And then by the time I got to the Army's combatives program, we as young, little boys, young men, we grew up, wrestling and tussling all the time. So, my brother wrestled in high school. I wrestled in middle school, tried out for wrestling, but didn't like working that hard. So I quit that. Let's be real, man. Wrestlers be out there grinding each other out, man.
Man, I'm telling you.
But grew up wrestling. I got an older brother, so always had to fight him off. And then I got 2 younger brothers, so I was always tussling them up. So grappling's just something that came very natural for me. So.
Yeah, just like in our DNA as boys to fight and wrestle. Because I don't have any brothers, but I do have cousins I was close with that we wrestled every chance we got. So definitely understand that, man.
Yeah, gotta establish that pecking order.
Got to. Now, so do your son train too, or is he kind of like shying away from it, or?
So my son trains. He doesn't live with me. He lives with his mom, so I can't make him train. And he did train for a while underneath my friend in Austin. But just because of her work schedule, we had to stop his membership. But when he's down here with me on the weekends, we go and we train together. I don't put him in the kids class because he's 12 and he's already getting really big. Plus he gets into the kids class and he just goofs off. And then, the adult class with me, at least I can keep him focused.
Right.
I try not to make it mandatory. I try to keep it fun and light with him. I think there's probably about a month of weekends where we didn't train at all. I was just like, hey, bud, let's go fishing. Let's, just hang out, play video games. Let's, just keep it light. I don't want him to, I don't want to make him hate it. And I don't want to be one of those parents who are trying to push my dream on him. I want him to come into it naturally and enjoy it.
Yeah. And I'm like that too. Like my daughter, she trains. She just got her fourth stripe on her white belt yesterday. So she's so gung ho about it, and I'm like, I'm trying not to get overzealous about it and be like, because she's always talking about like, she want to go to training, she can't wait to go to training, and then every time I compete, she gets mad because she's not competing. I'm like, I don't think we're there yet, but we'll see in a couple, in a year or two, and see how she, how she thinks about the idea about training, and then if she's still into it like that, we'll jump over to competing. But
yeah, definitely take your time with that, because there's my son, I think he was probably like his third stripe on his white belt when I let him compete, and he was all about training hard, and he wanted to compete, and he went out there and he got tussled up his first match and lost. He came off the mat crying, and I just scoop him up. It's okay, bud. We can't win them all. And after that, he kind of like shied away from training. So like some kids are just not going to be competitive, and I understand that.
right.
My son's so laid back. Like he'll just look at you like you're crazy if you yell at him. All right, whatever. And then some kids, they enjoy that stress. My son does not enjoy that. Like it's just not what he does.
Yeah, I don't think my daughter is like naturally ready for that, because she say it, but I'm like, well, right now, because we don't have too many kids that in our class that wants to compete, so it's like it's kind of hard to try to structure a class that will fit both needs. So I think once we get some more kids in, we'll switch it up a little bit. As well, right now, we're just gonna keep grinding and keep focusing on like the basics and whatnot.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So what about you? You compete? Do you compete or competed?
I try to compete. So when I first started, right? Like I said, I was in Alaska and there wasn't no gyms. So I spent almost 2 years just really doing the Gracie combative stuff. And then by the time I got to Virginia in 2011 and started underneath Pedro, at the time there wasn't any 2011, the IBJJF really wasn't a big thing. Competition jiu-jitsu hadn't really exploded yet like we see now.
Right.
So you'd get like 1 or 2 tournaments a year, and it was like compete once or twice depending on work schedule and stuff. But it was nothing that I really got into until I got to brown belt. And at brown belt, I really started competing. My first, so when I got to Semper Fortis in July 2020, that entire first year, I would say I competed 4 or 5 times. Like I was literally just firing off competitions. And then I laid off because I started, like I said, I'm a veteran, and my body had some injuries that been injured a few times, and I just found that like constantly keeping myself in competition prep mode was actually aggravating my injuries. So like right now, I'm just coming off a hiatus for my shoulders. My shoulders have been bothering me for years. And about 6 months ago, I ended up with a grade 2 separation in my AC joint, which took me off the mats for a bit. And then, I healed from that, and I was like, all right, back to training. First class I'm going back to, judo.
Shit.
So yeah, I went back and went back to training, and immediately right back to my hard-headed self. And it was like I was good for a few months, and then it was like I don't even know what I was doing. I think I was like pushing on a door at like a convenience store, and I pushed the wrong side, and I reseparated it again. And I was like, are you serious? So
oh my goodness, man.
So and the crazy thing is like like after I came back off of my shoulder injury, I was feeling good. I wasn't as conditioned as well as I would have liked to have been, but I competed my first black belt match, and I was like, all right, like there's one person in my bracket, like I don't have anything to worry about. Like if I go out there and lose, it's fine, right? And then I looked at who it was, and it was actually somebody I trained with at Gracie Baja, and I've known him since like 2016. So I was like, all right, I know if I tell him ahead of time that I'm injured, he's not going to yank my arm across the room. So, hit him up. Was like, hey, Damon, what's up, man? Hey, we're in bracket together, yada, yada. And I was like, just so you know, I'm injured. If you catch my left arm, I'm going to tap right away. He's like, perfect. That's all I needed to know.
Why would you tell him?
Classic misdirection. He did not submit me with an Americana, Kimura, or armbar. So, as much as I've competed, I've never had my picture taken and posted on the interwebs of me competing, doing anything cool. Like, it would have been really cool if they got the picture of me throwing, Damon with Sasai Kamigoshi, which slung him across the mat. But no, the picture they got of me was him full mount, cross collar choking me. So it's the only competition picture I ever had.
Oh, the tragedy, man. The tragedy.
It is what it is, man. I can't do nothing about it.
Right. Yeah. That's like I did my first competition as a purple belt, and I did 2 more as a brown. And the first time, I competed, I told this story before, but the first time I competed, the guy that I was going against was like 6'2", like 2 something, just solid muscle. And it was over in an instant. And I was like, this is what all this training boils down to? Like training hard just to get, tapped in like 2 seconds. But like you said, man, it comes with the territory, man. It comes with the territory.
It does, man. So in that match, like I said, I'd known Damon since 2016, and I used to do this stupid little thing as a purple belt, where if I was starting off in sparring, I would grab my lapel and force it out and dare them to grab it. And I did that during the match, and he looked at me like and just rolled his eyes like in the middle of the match, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm still a goofball." But the crazy thing about it was like Damon used to compete at like 240, 250, and we were competing at like 215. So he had cut down a lot from last year. So when I threw him, we scrambled and we ended up in turtle, and I had front headlock position, and he just stood up on me, and I was like, okay.
Right, so, gotta love it.
Yeah. But at the black belt competition level, that's where you realize where the term "there's levels to this" comes into play at. Damon's been a black belt for about 4 or 5 years. He's been competing, traveling across the country, at the black belt level. And like I really felt like I couldn't do anything against him. I know at brown belt, I'm not saying there's not really good lower belts or some stuff like that, but at black belt, you could walk into a tournament and be like, all right, I'm a 6-month white belt, and then you look across the mat, there's this 5th degree black belt, that you're going to end up going against. So you're like, man, like,
yeah.
One of the things I like about that is like, you look at my age and my weight class, currently, I'm looking at, legends of the sport, people who, I have the potential to be competing against legends of the sport, people that I looked up to when I started, Rafael Lovatos, all those guys who are still active in competition. So it's like, that's the equivalent of being able to play a pickup game with Jordan for me.
Right.
Whereas, as a boxer, you're probably never going to step in the ring with Mayweather.
Right. It would be nice, for the check, but yeah, it's highly unlikely.
I mean, I'll step in there with Tyson if you give me enough money.
Hey man, what? I would take a dive. Man, what? Right here on the chin.
Did you
Just,
see that
once
Henry?
I wake up, have my check ready.
Yeah, did you see that Henry Cejudo video clip where Henry Cejudo was hitting the pads and Tyson was watching him, and then the pad holder Tyson was like, "Nah, this is how you do it."
Yeah, he started sweating.
And he started pulling back. That'd be me and Tyson. I'm just gonna run around and let you hit me one good time, and I'm gonna fall.
That's it. As soon as Tyson was like, "Let me show you," you saw the life just drains from this guy's face from the fear. But that's crazy, man. I mean, it's amazing. Like him at his age still like can generate so much power.
Well,
and he looks like he can just still give you another 12-round fight.
Yeah. Well, you think Tyson was involved in that since he was a kid, right? And that was really just his entire focus. And when we look at the kids in jiu-jitsu now, right? And we got two teams at our school, Cash, Julius, they're brothers, they're 17, 16, excuse me. Cash hasn't turned 17 yet, but they've been in jiu-jitsu for about 4 years. And as they're starting to come into their little man body, they're starting to find some strength. They've got good technique. They've been training for a while. Like, you got to fight them like grown men. They compete in judo and jiu-jitsu. And as they continue to grow in the sport, like, they're going to get to a point where, they're going to be Tyson's age, and people are going to be like, oh, that's, if they stick with it, they're like, oh, that's, Julius, so that's Cash. Like, you should roll with him. Like, he's going to kill you, but, go roll with him. It'll be worth it. So,
yeah, those are the type that be dangerous, because you have to think of, like, them, for example, the Rotolo brothers, the Diaz brothers, like these guys who train this sport, but it can go home and have a high competitive, training partner to work outside the gym.
Yeah.
So, they're going to be nasty, man.
Those two, if they stick with it, like Cash is much better at jiu-jitsu than Julius, but Julius is much better at judo. Cash is also like the hardest working kid that I possibly could ever see. Like, he's in high school wrestling, he's in band, he's in tennis, he's wrestling. Like, if there's something for Cash to do, he'll do it. And then he'll leave school after all of his practices, jog the 3 miles to the gym, and come there and beat the snot out of us.
To be young.
I know, right? To be able to run again. These knees don't do that.
Right, to run, to be able to run. Yeah, man.
For sure.
But so I guess, with you being a black belt, like, how was it for you, like, seeing the evolution of, like, jiu-jitsu from where you started to, like, now?
Man, so remember I said, I told you I started in 2009, and it was really just based off of, like, the Grayson competitive systems. And then, my real first school was Pedro Sauer. So that's, Master Sauer is old school Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, self-defense based, still beautiful Jiu-Jitsu. And then, about a year and a half, 2 years later, we start seeing the Berimbolo, right? And then we start moving into the more sportive aspects, a lot more towards the sportive side of the house, at the wider proliferation level. But for me, just the evolution of jiu-jitsu it's been great to see, what's going on. Once again, I'm still a very, like, my jiu-jitsu is very fundamentally based. The most fancy guard I play is half butterfly, right? One, I'm, my knees and hips and backs are all banged up from service. So I can't do a whole lot of the other stuff. But also, that's just where I feel comfortable at, because, old school butterfly guard is something that I really focused on for many years. So, and it's not to knock any of the newer stuff. I think it's great. I watch it and, try to understand it. So that way, if a lower belt asks me about it, at least I have some understanding. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's just progressed so crazy. So
Yeah. Because I remember, like you said, the first, Gracie in the UFC, and then it's like you learn about this thing called Jiu Jitsu, and it's like, what the heck is this? Like, it just looks like two guys, just rolling around on the ground. To like now, where it's almost, I guess you would say it's almost mainstream because it's being incorporated in almost everyday life now. Like everybody's, everyone's trained, like, changing their, combat structure to incorporate more jujitsu. And, obviously you're seeing like, it's starting to become mainstream in sports, especially in like one championship. They'll have their, their combat grappling and whatnot. So it's amazing to see. And it's like, you can tell like it's going to go places that we probably would have never thought of when we first started doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy just to see it, 80cc's one, just to see it proliferated at such a high level, and seeing, jiu-jitsu artists finally being able to get paid instead of, like the only way I can make jiu-jitsu is to open a school. To see people making great money off of it. So yeah, it's changed so much.
Very, very much so. Very, very much so. So, what was I about to ask? So do you teach, or are you just, you just enjoy training? I know that, I've met a couple of black belts that don't teach. They just, train. So I was just curious.
So I generally do not teach. I generally just fall in on training and, provide tips and stuff like that. But, in the event that one of the head instructors, whether Saad or Sway, isn't able to get in, then, I'm more than happy to jump in and, showcase my, my variations of, jiu-jitsu techniques.
Gotcha. And I guess how have you noticed how much that helped you personally in your own journey, like jiu-jitsu journey, when you have to sit down and like teach a class?
Yeah. So the crazy thing about being, about the crazy thing about instructing or teaching a class is that, like, I used to teach a kids class for 2 years, right? And what ends up happening is because you're in that role, it actually forces you to become, focused on the details of the technique.
Yeah.
Like when you're teaching a kids class, you give them the overarching technique, and then you let them figure it out on their own. And then when they say, "Hey, I'm having a problem," you say, "Hey, well, you got to move your butt just a little bit more to the side." When you're teaching adults, you can give very, very detailed techniques, right? Like, I need you to move your butt 3/4 of an inch to the left, right hand, right wrist needs to be at a 75-degree angle, stuff, not that detailed, but it's like,
Yeah,
adults give them, very detailed things, and their brain's able to process it. With kids, you have to, give them the overarching technique, and then incorporate the details and let them figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, I feel personally like teaching, especially kids class, because I do run our kids class a lot, and because you do have to break it down to like the most simplest form when it comes to like just the basic of moving on the ground, or if you're trying to work a technique, you have to be able to explain it. But I've started to notice that the more I explain it to the kids, the more it makes sense to me too. Because like, dang, I ain't never think about it to make it that simple. And it's like, oh, all right, well, here we go.
Yeah, it really do be like that. I think I had heard Carlos Machado said, if you can't teach a technique in 3 to 4 steps, like especially to kids, it's gone. It's past them.
It's gone.
It's gone. And what I found is like, as soon as I started breaking it down into bite-sized little morsels, the more creative they became.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually stole a scissor sweep variation from one of the kids, because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do the scissor sweep, but I'm gonna set it up by doing something else, and then I'm gonna get the scissor sweep. No, this little young lady went straight for lasso guard, and then as soon as they pulled their arm out of her lasso grip, she would scissor sweep them off that. And I was like, I'm stealing that. That's mine.
It's mine now.
Telling you, man.
Oh yeah, because my daughter did that. Like, when she started, we were going over takedowns, and we went over, single leg, double leg, osotogari, and whatnot. And she kind of had trouble with all those. She saw me rep a drop serenagi one time with with one of our training partners, and that's been her best throw. I was like, out of all throws, you learn drop serenagi the quickest.
Hey, you know what? Honestly, seonagi, drop seo is probably one of the easiest for them because they know that as soon as they hit the ground, like the person's going over.
Right.
Semper Fortis is really one of the things that keeps me at, that enticed me about joining Semper Fortis and then staying there is the fact that, we've got a really good judo program. Our head instructor, Saad, he's not a judo guy, but his wife, she's a black belt in judo. And then we have the Wright family, which is Arthur, Chantel, Liam, and Kyle Wright. And those guys travel internationally to compete. So you've got, really good judo practitioners that are there to work alongside you. So all of our programs are have judo incorporated into it. And what I found with the kids classes is, we could teach osotogari, we could teach ukigoshi, we could teach all these other stuff that's required for them to belt up in judo. But as soon as you show them how to do, a drop seonagi, that's the first thing they're throwing in competition. Like, for whatever reason, the last competition that I attended with them, that was probably like 60% of the throws. That and osotogari. Like, yeah, that was it.
I think the main thing I saw at the last tournament was just it was one kid had a very unique entry to a leg pick for a single leg, which was like, I was like, okay, that's being recorded. And
stealing that.
Well, I was like, yep, because I was recording on my camera. I was like, oh yeah, that's going in the highlights right there. That's going in the toolbox. And what else was it? Sotogari was like the main two that I saw. I think maybe one or two kids hit a drop serenagi. But yeah, other than that, just the basics, So
yeah, for
sure.
Sure.
It's honestly, it's so fun watching the kids. It's so fun watching kid competitions.
Yeah,
it's like it's so random, but it's so entertaining.
Yeah. So, and as a coach, like I actually, I would get more nervous about the kids competing than they would. They'd be there stoic, like ready to go, and I'm like pacing. I'm like keeping my feet moving. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm about to compete. And, the kids are ready to go. They're locked in. And I'm like, I just want the kids to do well.
I know, right? Because it was one girl. She was just adorable. Her first ever tournament. And you can tell when a kid, they continuously rep stuff in class for stuff. And like every time, like they would stand up and she would go for her throw. She would go for this setup for her throw. If she does not get it, she would break apart, break off, reset, and go right back to it. And it's just like the intensity in her face was like, she's gonna get this throw.
Well, I'm gonna get this throw. I'm gonna get this. The last competition I went to, Professor Sway, her grandson competed there, and like, locked up with the kid, throws a Sotogari, right? They hit the ground, the kid scrambles out, stands back up. He gets a hold of him, Caleb gets a hold of him, throws him again with the Sotogari. And now Caleb's like falling in love with it because he's like, I can throw this kid and win. So he like, the kid, bridges and shrimps to get out from side control. Caleb stands up right away. Osotogari. He won on points throwing Osotogari 5 times on this kid. And I'm just like, I'm not even mad. Like, I'm not even mad. And I didn't coach the kid. I didn't coach Caleb for that sway day because this is a grandbaby, right? But I was outside in the concession area, and like the kid came out, and Dad was talking, blah blah blah. I was like, oh yeah. Oh man, your son did really well. He's like, no man. He's like, that kid was purposely just letting my son get up and just so he could throw him back down. I was like, it'd be like that, bro.
It'd be like that. That's crazy. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know, man. It'd be like that. But
It'd be like Caleb, that sometimes.
Yeah, Caleb threw that kid around for a minute, and I was just like, yo, I'm not even mad. Like, you going home with double gold medals because of that one. Good job.
He said, oh, you trying to escape? Come on, get on up. Bye out. That's sort of great.
No, I'm going to put you back down. And these aren't like nice little, break, good Kazushi, step past, block the leg and push them down. No, these are like full on like Kazushi and step at the same time, trail leg, chops, and you're seeing like little feet flying through the air, and you're like,
yeah,
yo, Kayla's really trying to take that kid out.
Yeah, because like when I was, I was teaching her the drop Serenagi, she would always like, when she would go for it, by the time she hits her knee, she would let go. And she was like, they keep falling on me. I said, I was like, when you grab the arm, hug it to your chest like it's your little sister. So she was like, okay. And next thing you know, she went for it, and this kid just said, Woof. Yeah. I said, yep, there we go.
For sure. One of the things one of the ways that I taught the kids because how we do Sayonagi is we don't, when we pull, we don't grab with our hand. What we do is we end up biting it with our bicep. Right?
Ah, okay.
And what that does is by biting it with the bicep, we're flexing on them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would teach you just like this. I would go, hey, what time is it? It's throw time to say, hey, I'm breaking balance. We want to throw them. What we're going to do, we're going to flex on them. Right? And then I would teach them to, as they're dropping down, not to drop directly down, but to spin and drop. And that prevents them, their opponent, from falling directly on them. It actually creates like this little hurricane-like throw. So,
yep, twist, turn, drop your forehead to the mat, and the rest is history.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and like I said, she loves it. All right, Chris. So we got a little thing here on Talk Your Jits podcast. Your top 3 people you would like to roll with.
Let's see. Top 3. For real?
For real. Like if you can set it up right now, they called you and said, "Hey, you got a chance to have a match with these 3 people." Who would they be?
Oh, that's easy. I know I'm gonna get smoked, but just to be able to say like I got a chance to roll with him, I'm good with it, right? Let's go with the king, Gordon Ryan.
Ryan.
Like, I would love to roll with Gordon sometime. Like, and it's not anything of like I'm trying to win or anything. No, I'm really coming in there because I want to learn it, right?
Yeah.
I want to see what he's doing, because I can't afford his BJJ Fanatic instructionals.
None of them.
I know if I roll with him for 5 to 10 minutes, I can pick something up, at least 1 or 2 things.
Can I record this? That's all I need to know. Good stuff. Just don't smoke me in like 2 seconds. Give me something to take home.
For real. Let's see. I'd really like to roll with I want to say Sanji Hibero. So he's an hour and a half north. And I would love to be able to go up there sometime and visit him because he's a judo black belt. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Great instructor, great competitor. I would love to go up there and, just roll with him sometime. That'd be great. Let's see. And the last one is actually something that I'm actually planning is I plan on going to, once again, this is an Austin gym, which is an hour and a half away, which is Gracie Humaita up in North Austin. And that's to get a chance to roll with Tim Kennedy. So
nice.
I've had some, because of my military service, I've had a chance to cross paths with Tim a few times, and never got a chance to train with him. But I think just to see like how intense he would be, because of just naturally who he is as a person, just to see like he seems like a really nice guy, cool, blah 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 blah, and then like as soon as you try to sweep him, like he's just gonna rip your head off. I just want to see what that's like.
It's over.
Yes.
All right, Chris. Unless you got some questions for me, man, I want you to, if you got if you got anything you're working on or anything you got upcoming, definitely shout out your school, man. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, for sure. I do absolutely. One, I'm always going to shout out Pedro Sauer. He's where I started my jiu-jitsu. A lot of my jiu-jitsu is still based off of the things that I spent my first 3 years in training with him. Master Luis Pajares, he came down and he's the one who promoted me to black belt. He's been such a great mentor since I've been at the team. Saad and Sway Al-Aziz, the owners and head instructors of Semper Force Jiu-Jitsu. I'm super thankful that they've created a gym with a type of environment where an average person can come in and get some good training in and not feel like they're the nail every day. So they've really created such a great environment, a great gym, and I'm forever thankful to them. Let's see who else. Shout out to God for giving me the ability to understand jiu-jitsu, because Lord knows I'm stupid some days.
Yes, sir.
And then my last one is actually the We Defy Foundation. I'm actually a We Defy Foundation ambassador. And for people who don't know what We Defy is and never been exposed to it, they are an organization. They're a charitable, they're a charitable organization that provides combat veterans coping with military-connected disabilities and long-term means to overcome their challenges through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and fitness training. So they literally pump, they literally go out and, they're finding combat, injured veterans, and they're trying their best to get them healed from their injuries and disabilities through the use of jiu-jitsu and fitness. And I, as an ambassador, I got involved with it just because for me, jiu-jitsu, I got PTSD, and I'm not even gonna lie about it. For me, jiu-jitsu is part of my treatment plan. PTSD is, has issues with anxiety, right? And because it's part of my treatment plan, one of the reasons why it's part of my treatment plan is because jiu-jitsu teaches you to live in that stressful moment, forces you to be right there the entire time and learn to deal with it. You can't get away from it. You can't do nothing. You've got to deal with it. And jiu-jitsu's, helps so much with my PTSD. And I volunteered to become an ambassador because I want to help every veteran that I possibly can. If they're going through something and they think they want to try jiu-jitsu, reach out to the We Defy Foundation, and they'll do their best to help you out. If you guys are looking to, to provide a charitable donation, you guys can, visit their website. It's wedefyfoundation.org. It'll be very helpful to our veteran community.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Because I wasn't in the armed forces or anything, but I do, commend everyone for their service. So, extending that to you as well. But I was speaking from experience about, dealing with anxiety and depression. And if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, man, Whew. that's all I can say is like if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, man, it was rough. But yeah. So I will definitely get some more information on that, man. I'll post that as well because that's an awesome thing that you're doing. Awesome thing that they're doing, and I am a big advocate of getting jiu-jitsu and in fitness and gym in everyone's life. So yeah, definitely gonna definitely shout that out, man. Definitely.
Bet.
All right, man. And that's the end of today's episode. I would love to thank Chris one more time for coming on the show, showing his jiu-jitsu wealth of knowledge. I hope you guys learned and took something from that. Please go and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page to stay updated on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day.